everybody, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. In this episode, we are going to be talking specifically about the 2020 AP World History Modern DBQ. So how it's been modified. We're going to talk about the rubrics and the essay outline and stuff. So most of it is the same. There's just slight changes, and really it's the points and a couple of adjustments in what's required. So not huge differences, but a couple things to point out. So I wanted to go over this in detail before we actually practice our first 5 document DBQ. We've done 7 documents. We did one right before the pandemic and everything like that, but we'll be practicing starting this Friday, and we'll be doing every week until the AP exam. So I think it's just important you understand the rubrics, because we've talked about that before. If you know the rubrics, then that is the gateway to writing the essay, right? Before you do any assignment, you look at the rubrics. What does the teacher or the professor want from me? So this is no different. And especially because this is the only thing on the AP exam this year, it's really important that you know the rubrics, how you can get those points, and how that breaks down into your essay, okay? Because time is the enemy on this one. I'm just going to keep it real. Time is the enemy on this one. So got to know where to get those points and making sure that you're slam dunking them, especially the easy ones. We've talked about that before. The hard points are hard to get. Document analysis, SOAPs, grouping, document discussion, but those easy points, contextualization, thesis, outside source, basic document discussion, those are points you have to make sure you're getting, because the hard ones are always going to be hard. And so we just really want to emphasize that and just make sure that we're being really disciplined. And then when we practice going over everything and planning and stuff like that, we'll continue to work on brainstorming those and working with 5 documents. All right, so here we're going to go over the rubrics first. So here we go. Okay, so I have broken it down, and I have a more detailed version of this. So this is basically what I post on the website. So if you go to the home page, scroll all the way down to week 2, and you will see the new rubrics attached there. It's a Word document. Okay, I've inserted it there. So what I would do is specifically go look at that. That is a more detailed version of this. I just didn't have space to type it all in, but I'm going to go over it so that it all makes sense. But I have a hard copy of this for you on the website on the home page. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. Honestly, it shouldn't even be a recommendation required. Go print it off. You need to have that, okay? Especially as we're practicing for the DBQs and stuff like that. You got to make sure you're hitting on these points. Okay, so here we go. The old rubrics, 7 points were possible. New rubrics, 10 points possible. So count them really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 points here, okay? So most of this is not new. What they've done, or the new things, is they've just expanded points where they're already requiring. So here we go. We'll go through this pretty quick, because again, it's really not too different. They're just requiring maybe a little bit more of some things that they didn't before. So first, contextualization, exactly the same. So we go in the introduction, 4 to 5 facts, giving background information leading up to the prompt, right? We've practiced that. You guys know that. We've practiced those on LEQs, so nothing will be different. Thesis, same thing, 1 point, exactly the same. So your introductory paragraph basically won't be different, okay? So your contextualization, first 2 to 3 sentences, 4 to 5 pieces of information. Thesis, last part of the intro, 1 to 2 sentences. So that's where you rephrase the prompt, group fact, okay? Remember, in the thesis, you cannot give the document number, okay? So you summarize the document or summarize generally what it's about, but you don't give the document number. Okay, so the body paragraphs, that's where the modifications happen. That's where the modifications happen, or where they just require more. So here we go. Okay, so in the old DBQ, they required 7 documents. You had to do 6 documents correctly. So here's what's different. To get 1 point, if you discuss 2 out of 5 documents correctly, just discuss them, you get 1 point. That's actually easier in some ways, okay, to get that point. Now, they're giving a second point, though, for discussing. So you get 1 point for just general discussion of the documents, doing it correctly, like basically you're just getting the right topic. You know, it's kind of like if you're shooting a basket that you hit the backboard, at least you're in the zone. They're going to give you a second point if you accurately discuss those documents and tie them to the prompt. Okay, so tie them into the topic of the prompt in the way that you're discussing. So you're asking, well, how do I do that? Now, it's not something separate you do. It's just the quality of your discussion. So the the point for discussion of two documents correctly and the new point for accurately discusses and connects to the prompt, it's not that you have to do anything different. This is just the quality of the discussion. So you get 1 point for like an okay discussion, and you get a second point for having a really good discussion. So this is where I've talked about if you can do 2 to 3 really good lines of discussion, okay? Just rephrasing or quoting the prompt is not enough. You need to really go into depth. So like I said, if you can try to keep yourself to that 2 to 3 lines of discussion, that is really going to help. So let me emphasize that again. To get this fourth point, this 2 documents connected to prompt accurately, that's not something additional you do. That's just the quality of the discussion. Okay, so they're giving a point which is slightly modified. They're only requiring 2 documents to be correctly discussed to get 1 point. And you get a second point if those 2 documents, or if 2 out of your 5 documents are the really, really good, accurate discussion and connected to the prompt really well. Now, they have a second point. This is a modification. Well, they have a second point for getting 4 out of 5 discussion correctly. So on the original DBQ rubrics, you only got 1 point for document discussion. That was it. So 6 out of 7 documents had to be discussed correctly, 1 point. So the modification is kind of 2 things. You get 1 point for 2 documents correct. You get a second point for 4 out of 5. So if 4 out of 5 of your documents are discussed correctly, you get 2 points, basically. 1 point for 2 documents, you get a second point for the other 2 documents. So if you have 4 total, you can get 2. Then that new one where I have new accurately discusses, this is just quality of discussion. So this is something that didn't even exist. So what they did was they added a second point basically for document discussion. They made it easier. It used to be you only got 1 point if you got 6 out of 7 just for discussion. So now you can get 1 point for getting 2 out of 5. You get a second point if you can have 4 out of 5, and they give you a third point if 2 of those 5 documents are really nicely discussed and tied to the prompt. Okay, so that's the quality of discussion. And I want to repeat that again. There's nothing additional you have to do. So they just added some points there and broke it up, made it actually easier to get some points. So you can get 1 point for 2 documents correct, a second point for 4 documents out of 5, and then they threw in that new point for the accuracy that you are tying it to the prompt. Okay. Here's another piece that is the same, but they added. So in the original rubrics, you only had to have 1 piece of outside information, okay? So you'll see that right here, 1 piece of outside information. That's the same. Remember, it has to be on topic. It just can't be in the document. So you're like, what does it mean by outside piece of information or additional piece of information? That's just something that wasn't covered in the documents, right? So it's something that relates to the topic directly, right? Remember, make sure it's not too far removed. It has to be directly related. Now, it used to be they only required 1 and it was 1 point. So they now are giving a second point. So this is new, okay? So this is new. They now want 2 pieces of outside information. And this is actually kind of cool because remember how we've talked about it was better to give 2 in case 1 was wrong? So now you get 2 points for giving 2. You get 1 point for 1 and you get a second point for 2. So just like in the last essay, you put that outside piece of information with whatever document, you do it after the document with whatever document you feel it best ties to, okay? So it's the same outside piece of information. They just want you to give 2 now instead of 1, okay? And we had been practicing giving 2, right? Because that was kind of a safety net. So now if you have 1 piece of accurate outside information, you get 1 point. And if you give a second one, then you can get a second point. So that is, remember where they went from 7 to 10 points, this is one of those additional points. They're giving 1 extra point in the document discussion. They're giving 1 extra point in the outside piece of information, okay? And just like before, you will put those after whatever document discussion. So you do document discussion, you do SOAPs, and then you do the outside information if you tie it to the document, right? So if you go back and look at your old DBQ outlines and stuff like that, that will be no different. You just are required to give 2 now instead of 1. Which that's awesome. This is where reviewing your content will be really helpful. Contextualization, knowing your content. That's why doing those timeline reviews is so important. And outside piece of information is so important because if you know that stuff, easy points to get. Contextualization, easy point. Thesis, easy point. Outside pieces of information, know your stuff. These are easy points. You only have to discuss 2 documents correctly to get 1 point. That should be easy. Only 2 out of 5. 4 out of 5, that can be hard. That can be a harder point to get, but definitely you should be able to get 1 or 2 of those document discussion points. Okay, let's go over the last 3. So this is again where it's the same but some modification, okay? So the SOAPs requirements have actually gone down, okay? So on the old rubrics, 2 points for doing soaps, they are still giving you 2 points, okay? So they're giving you 1 point if you can do soap correctly on a document. So for speaker, occasion, audience, or purpose. Another way that if you go back up here to where it says 2 documents connected to the prompt accurately, you can also do that by doing soaps. So what we're going to do is we're going to still do soaps on as many documents as you can. I want you to do soaps on at least 4 documents, okay? So if you don't do it on 5, because of time, we're going to be in a little bit of a time crunch. But if you're like, well, how am I going to get this 2 documents connected to prompt accurately, you know, beyond discussion? Soaps can also help into that. So they're giving 1 point for doing a soaps on a document, speaker, occasion, audience, or purpose accurately. Remember, you do that after document discussion. So you say the speaker is, the occasion is, the audience is, or the purpose is, and you go into it. And then they're giving a 2nd point for doing soaps on another document. The speaker is, the occasion is, the audience is, the purpose is, okay? All right, the very last point is for complexity, and this is the same on the old one, or basically grouping, okay? So this is by showing themes or groups, so putting the documents into categories or groups, aka body paragraphs, right, that have a theme or a topic that help connect to the prompt. So this shows complexity, it shows analysis, and it helps actually direct the discussion of the document. So we've talked about this before. When you can do proper grouping, when you look at this last point, if you go back up to the document, 2 documents used correctly, documents connected, 4 documents, grouping actually helps set up document discussion. If you can do proper grouping, it can help set up then the discussion of the documents in the right direction. So again, I've used the analogy of like baseball, and it's kind of like it helps keep it in field. You know, not every document's going to be a home run the way that you discuss it, but if you can, you know, get a base hit, hey, that can get you a point. You know what I mean? Where if you keep hitting foul balls, that's not good. You know, so grouping helps set that up. So you get a point for showing that complexity or the ability to create those themes or groups that we have practiced. Okay. So in summary, kind of like what's the same, what's different? So the same. Thesis, exactly the same. Okay, so thesis, so like I said, if you haven't already, pause this, go print out the new rubrics. Okay, go print out the new rubrics. I posted on the homepage, scroll down, week 2, it's posted there. Print it out. Okay, so thesis, exactly the same. Contextualization, exactly the same. Discussion of the documents is the same. You need to discuss all the documents. There's just less documents, okay? But you need to discuss all the documents. Okay, the same. You still need to do grouping. You still have to do grouping or themes and put those documents into groupings or themes. What else is the same? Outside source. You are giving outside pieces of information, and you are showing analysis, okay? So everything is basically the same. It's just the number of the requirements, or there's more or less, okay? So really the outline and the structure of what you need to do is the same. You just have less documents, you have less soaps, but you have more outside source. So that's kind of, so what's different? Less docs, okay? So they're giving you more points for using less documents, basically. So if you use all the documents correctly, you get 2 points instead of 1. So if you can get 4 out of 5, now remember, we do all 5 in case you make a mistake, which it happens, okay? So remember, our rule is always do all of them, all right? But they give you 1 point for doing 2 correctly. Like, that's really nice. Like, that's actually easier than the old rubrics. And then you get a 2nd point if you can get at least 4 out of 5. So we will always discuss all the documents, always. Now, the difference, another difference is they're requiring 2 outside sources instead of 1, right? And there used to be 1 point on the old rubrics. Now the old rubrics, now there's 2 points, okay? So it's the same way to do it. It's nothing different. You just have to give 2 of them, which we had been practicing anyways, okay? Less soaps. So they actually are not requiring as many soaps as the old rubrics. The old rubrics, you had to give more soaps, and they're still giving 2 points. Now, I still want you to attempt soaps on as many documents as possible. Why? Because soaps not only shows analysis, you get 2 points for doing soaps, and soaps is where we're going to tend to probably make the most mistakes, so you want to attempt as much as possible for higher accuracy rates. You know what I mean? Because that's a harder one. The analysis ones are harder to do. And if you get more than 2 soaps correctly, that can also count toward document discussion and better connection to the prompt. It can show better discussion. So it can't hurt you to do more soaps. There's no negative to doing more soaps, okay? Difference, there's 10 points now instead of 7. Okay, so there's more points, but like I said, it's really, they've just increased the value of certain areas. More outside sources, they give you more points for soaps and for document discussion, okay? Grouping is going to be a little different. So it used to be with 7 documents, you would have 2, 2, and 3, right? 2 documents, and 3. Well, obviously you can't do that now with 5 documents. You just can't do that, okay? So in order to get the grouping point or the themes point, that last point on the rubrics, you only have to have 2 correct groups, aka 2 documents with 2 groups. So you will have a third group. I would still give it a theme. I would still do 3 groups. You're going to do 2 and 2, but you'll have 1. So you're still going to have 3 groups, but they're really only judging you on 2 of them for the grouping point. Now, you're still going to do 3 body paragraphs. Just your last body paragraph with 1 document is going to be shorter, okay, because it's 1 document. So you'll do 1 document, soaps, and if that's it, then that's it. Or if you have an outside source, you could put that in there as well, okay? And we're just going to completely forget the conclusion. Before, we were only doing a couple sentences just to finish it off, but we just don't have time. You have 45 minutes, and that includes planning, and so no time, okay? So stick those outside sources in the body paragraph, like we've practiced, all right? So just to summarize really quick, what's the same? Thesis, contextualization, you need to discuss all the documents, you still need to do grouping, you still have to give outside source, you still have to do soaps. Everything's the same. There's just less of it and the point values have changed, okay? So less documents and they're giving you an extra point now for document discussion. So less documents and they're giving you extra points for that. More outside sources instead of 1, now there's 2. They're giving 2 points for soaps. They're requiring less, but we're still going to do all the soaps because we are likely to mess up on them. So that's one reason. And if we have extra soaps at work, they can count toward the document discussion and that 3rd point that they're giving for connecting it to the prompt. Okay. 10 points instead of 7. Remember grouping now, it's 2, 2, and 1. So you're still going to do 3 groups. You're still going to do your T-chart. You're still going to group everything 2, 2, and 1. They're just really looking for 2 themes. And so that last body paragraph is just going to be much shorter because it'll be 1 document, 1 soaps. And then if you haven't used an outside source, put that in there. And then don't even think about conclusion. There just isn't any time. Okay. All right. Let's quickly talk about outline. It's basically the same. All right. I just want to review it to make sure you're good because this Friday we're going to do practice of the planning part, right? Okay. So essay outline. Intro is exactly the same. Nothing has changed, not a thing, not a thing, not a thing. So do it exactly like I've taught you to do it. So intro is contextualization, right? 4 to 5 outside piece of information. And remember, that's 2 to 3 sentences beginning of the paragraph, okay? Now remember, those pieces of information need to be specific, okay? So you can't just say trade. You would need to give a trade route. You can't just say trade in. What did they trade? And give several things. Give a date range, give a location, give a name of people. So there have to be specifics, okay? A movement, something like that. You can't just be general. So make sure that you're not being too vague on that because that's an easy point to get. And I'm telling you, like, you guys, there's such an opportunity to pass this year. I'm excited by it, but this all the more, it's like you can't let the easy points. I wish I could be in front of you and just stress this enough to you. You know what I mean? I could give you my crazy faces and you guys could look at me like, you're crazy, Miss Hall. I'm telling you, you cannot let the easy points go. All right? Contextualization all day long, you need to be getting that. That is why the outline review is so important. The timeline reviews are so important because you got to know your stuff. You got to know your stuff. So these things we're doing with the Heimler's history videos, going back over your prep books, going over the Quizlets, it's so important you know your stuff. It's so important, okay? Thesis, again, an easy point. It's a formula. You got to get it, okay? So rephrase the prompt. Remember, don't leave out location. Don't leave out date. Don't leave out those important key things. And then group fact, group fact, group fact. Remember, no document number, okay? So you summarize the document. And this should be the last 1 to 2 sentences of the intro, okay? So 2 points in the intro. That has not changed. I expect you to get both points, all right? You cannot skip that. You got to do it. Those are the easy points. You got to do it. Okay, body paragraphs. Body paragraphs are exactly the same. There's just slight modification in the number of documents, right? Okay, so it's the same outline for each body paragraph, right? So you start with the topic sentence. That's where you give your theme or your group, which you should have already given in the thesis, right? So you're just outlining the structure of your essay, and then the body paragraph should follow that same structure, okay? So remember, in the body paragraphs, use the document numbers all day long. Please, please, please. And again, we don't have a lot of time. You guys remember when we wrote that last DBQ in class, how quick and rushed it was? This is going to be, I'm telling you, you're going to be writing for your life. All right, this is going to be the challenge of this AP exam, is you have no time, and so you are going to have to write like a fury. So D1, D2, D3, like just get to the document. Okay, so 2 to 3 lines of discussion. You can quote, but remember, keep the quote short. You're not going to get the discussion point for quoting. You get the discussion point for discussing, for in your own words, discussing, okay? So taking whatever they say and in layman's terms doing that. So if a quote helps you, keep it short, half a line. Hey, your discussion, minimum 2 lines. I'm telling you, you're not going to get discussion point if it's less than 2 lines. You have got to do a decent discussion, all right? Then you do SOAPs for each document. So 2 to 3 lines, which can be 1 sentence of document discussion. Then you do SOAPs, so you pick one, right? So you say the speaker is, the occasion is, the audience is, the purpose is. Again, 2 to 3 lines, okay? So this should be further in depth, and remember, this can go into more depth things. You know, this needs to show analysis. So the audience, justify who it is, but why. Purpose, what are they trying to accomplish? Occasion, what brought about the document. Speaker, tell me what the speaker is trying to accomplish. Remember, speaker almost incorporates purpose. Okay, don't choose speaker unless you understand their point of view, or you maybe know the person. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the person or the thing, I would not choose speaker. Okay, document, then you do your next document. So whatever that document is, 2 to 3 lines of discussion, can be 1 sentence. Okay, D1, D2, D3, SOAPs, the speaker is, the occasion is, the audience is, the purpose is. And then put in your outside source. Remember, outside source can go after whichever document you want to discuss it. So if you want to put it in, let's say after, let's say your first body paragraph, it was documents 2 and 3. That was your group. Okay, so your topic sentence, you gave your group. Then you discussed document 2. Let's say you did purpose. So the purpose of document 2, you discussed that. Then let's say you wanted to give an outside source. So you say an additional piece of information is, or the outside source is. So make sure you're super clear and you tie it to the topic. Okay, you have to justify it. Make sure that it's on topic. Okay, not too far removed, and that it's not covered in your contextualization or in the documents. Remember, if you use it in contextualization, you can't double dip it with outside source. Okay, so just be careful about that. Contextualization should lead up to the prompt. Outside source can be during the timeline, it can be before the timeline, or it can be after the timeline, as long as it relates to whatever the topic is. Okay. Then you would do your document 3, 2 to 3 lines, your SOAPs. Let's say you did audience, boom, boom, boom. Move on to the next body paragraph. So each body paragraph is exactly the same structure. Topic sentence, document discussion, SOAPs, document discussion, SOAPs, and then you insert your outside source wherever you need it. Remember, you only need 2. So you put them wherever you need them, but you're not going to have them after every single document. So for every document, you do discussion and SOAPs. And remember, we talked about you're going to do SOAPs for every document because in case you make mistakes, you're more likely to get the point, and if you have extras, they can count toward better discussion, so you could kind of earn more points there. Now, let's talk really quick about whatever group or document is alone. You're kind of like, well, what do I do with it? Well, try to just pick basically the subject of it. That could be your group. So whatever the subject of it is, or kind of the general theme of it, discuss it, do SOAPs, okay? But keep that third body paragraph short, to the point, you know, and it's just going to be a short body paragraph. So I would do your 2 documents group, 2 documents paragraph. So I would do your first two body paragraphs should be 2 documents, and then your last body paragraph, which will be your shortest, I would do 1 document. So whatever document is left that you don't put with the other groups, I would do it by itself. Now, let's say you feel like it goes really well with another group, then I would tie it to one of the body paragraphs the best that you can. But if you feel like the document doesn't tie, so let's say you have 4 documents, you feel like, oh, these 2 tie well together, these 2 tie well together, and you have that third document, you don't know where to put it, then do a separate body paragraph, just make it short. But let's say that you had a document that you feel like, oh, this really ties well in with these other 2 documents, then go ahead and tack it in at the bottom of that body paragraph. Because this is going to be such a short essay, you want to make sure one of those 2 things. If you can't tie it in, then do it its own separate short body paragraph. If you feel like you can tie it into a group, then go ahead and do that. So document discussion and then the SOAPs. Okay. If you have specific questions or things you feel like I didn't cover or I need to clarify or something like that, please email me, send me a remind message. Anything I confused you on, hopefully I didn't confuse you. Make sure you printed off that the new rubrics, take a look at it. Again, go back. I feel like it's really straightforward. Nothing really new. They're just giving you more points. So they're requiring more, less documents. They're requiring more outside sources, less documents. They're giving more points for document discussion, okay? We're going to be doing our first 5 document DBQ practice. So we're not writing a DBQ this week. We're just doing the planning where you're going to set the timer for 10 minutes and you're going to go over the documents. You're going to analyze them, group them, talk about contextualization, outside source, and then Monday we're going to go over them, okay? And we're going to do that for a couple weeks, then we'll practice writing one. So between now and Friday, you need to be completing the 1450 to 1750 timeline review. And again, sending me any emails or remind messages with questions before we do the planning we practice planning on Friday. So if you have any questions or need clarification, let me know so I can clear it up. And that way you'll be good to go on Friday. Hope you're doing well, and we'll talk soon. Okay, bye.